Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dalton Doherty, and in this podcast series, I will be interviewing investors, advisors, entrepreneurs, and founders from the agency recruitment world. Today, I'm speaking to Marina Byezhanova. She is originally from the Ukraine, and her family moved to Canada after the collapse of the USSR. We discuss her journey from what essentially is communist Russia to moving to the free world in Canada and growing up essentially an immigrant, but she's been in Canada for a long time. She did the school system there, or a large part of it. Went to university. Like myself, she studied marketing and didn't learn anything because marketing before social media really was just common sense. But she just has a really great story, and those early experiences that she got, where she describes her childhood as having no color. There was no like outside world influences. It sounds a little bit bleak, but all those experiences have made her really hungry. And whenever the marketing agencies out there wouldn't have a look at her, and she thinks it's because of her surname, because she wasn't Canadian, um, she fell into recruitment and she got really good at it. She got so good at it, she set up her own company with her business partner, and they've had something like 6 kids between them, and they've still managed to run a successful business. They run not a specialist agency, and probably the only person I'll interview that doesn't run a specialist agency. They're very client and candidate focused, but when they take on an assignment, they're all about the experience of the client and the experience of the candidate, and she gets really into how she's created her firm based around that. And a lot of people say they do that, but she's done it to such an extent that she's founded a separate business on employer branding, and she goes into a lot of that as well. So really intelligent woman and very impressive, and yeah, just one of many great smart people in our industry. And it's great to get another woman on the podcast. There's too many men, I know, but there are some great women in our industry, and I hope to interview many more like Marina. Okay, over to the interview. Marina, how are you?
Good. How are you? Good morning.
I'm the best. I'm the best. I've actually had a decent night's sleep. Unfortunately, my wife was up most of the night with our newborn, so I'm ready to rock.
Yep. Very familiar with that. I have 2 of my own, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh wow. Well, we'll definitely jump into some of that stuff later. So thanks for coming on the podcast, and we're really excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, let's try the surname. Imagine if somebody was called my first name and your surname. They wouldn't have a chance in life at all, would they?
That's a good point. That would be a killer combo.
Byezhanova, is that right?
No.
Go on, say it for me.
It's Byezhanova.
Byezhanova. Okay, cool.
Perfect.
All right, you sounded like a Bond girl there.
I like that. I'll take it.
Okay. All right. So, how we normally start this off is, I have given everybody a brief rundown into your business and stuff, but if you could kind of elaborate on your story and maybe we'll go back a little bit further than how you got into recruitment, because you're not ethnically Canadian, and it was a bit of a journey for you even to get there. So why don't you start with that, and then we'll jump into the recruitment stuff.
Of course, it's been quite a journey for me, metaphorically, but also quite literally. So I was born and raised in the Soviet Union. When I was about 9 or 10 years old, it became Ukraine. And my family came to Canada when I was 16 years old. So when we came here, I went to university. I studied marketing. I graduated from, the best university in Canada, which is McGill University, thinking that here I am, I will be able to land a job in marketing and no problem. I'm from a great school, decent grades. And that did not happen for me. And I think I realized that now also as a recruiter, looking back and analyzing as to why that happened, I think one of the reasons is that, as you said, I was not ethnically Canadian. A lot of, the local realities of the market were quite alien to me. And also my last name was not helping me get jobs either. I had a hard time landing interviews up until I removed from my resume that I spoke Russian and Ukrainian and just left English, French, Spanish. And that helped quite a bit, unfortunately.
That's
but
interesting.
Also fortunately.
So let's jump into the before Ukraine became a country. Well, it's essentially that's communist Russia, for a better word. And what was it like life then? We're like, I've heard certain things like you couldn't get certain products back then. Like, I'm sure most people listening here have no clue on the reality of what life was like. And what was that contrast like coming to Canada?
Oof, I don't even know where to start. It was the biggest culture shock that I can describe. It's very different for people coming to North America or even, Western European countries from Eastern Europe today. It was very different back then. So, when I was growing up, as you said, we had access to nothing. We couldn't travel. Everything we saw on TV was highly regulated. So only, negative things would be shown about other countries so that we would think that, we're living in the best place in the world. One of the things that I remember from being a child is that there was no color, like literally. And I remember we had once an exchange from the UK, and she started crying on one of the days and asked her why, and she said, "Your kids look so all weird, sometimes white." And we said, "Well, why is it strange?" And she said, "No, back at home, kids wear a lot of color." So just everything from the things around us, able to purchase anything. And most interestingly, today, because no such thing as entrepreneurship when I was growing up. So perhaps the biggest.
Do you think that's made you hungrier?
Beyond any question, and I think what it's definitely once the possibility, even though that might sound. But once the world of possibility and everything is possible opens up, it's almost even a visual thing. When I was growing up, that I could kind of see the walls around me. And then when I came to Canada, it just seemed that, oh my God, everything is actually possible if you work hard enough. I hope so hard to that kids' mentality. Just makes you not only also, profoundly. My life would have been very different had I stayed back in Ukraine, that's for sure.
I bet it would. And let's jump into that university stuff. So I did the same thing. I did business and marketing and I did postgrad in marketing. And the one thing that's clear to me is that marketing didn't change from 1950 to about 2000. And about 5 years after I graduated, the world changed with social media. It would be so much more interesting to go and study marketing now than it would have been when we did it. I'm not sure I gained a tremendous amount from my experience studying marketing, and I would think our curriculum would have been quite similar. Did you grab a lot out of that?
Not at all, and even that.
That's good, because I wasn't the best student, so it could have just been me. But...
no, not at all. And speaking with my friends also who graduated and now are working for marketing agencies and have become partners, etc., we share the same sentiment. No, we did not learn a lot. We didn't even, budgets, or tactical things. And you're saying that. I'm wondering how much it has. Sometimes with academia, things take a very long time to adjust. But what I find really cool is that, when I was studying marketing, I suppose when you were studying marketing, having a strong grasp on, the pop culture and just sort of the relevant phenomena was very one of the reasons to get a job in marketing when I was graduating. It's all about being able to to build a professional brand. So for me, I still had that massive chip on my shoulder over not having been able to get a job in marketing. But today, having my own business and B, marketing being a completely different game, it just feels extremely validating to be able to do marketing.
And we'll jump into that because I think it's a really interesting topic, recruitment within marketing, and it's like it's just arrived in the last few years properly.
Yes.
Because nobody was doing it right before. But I feel like there's almost a framework there. But we'll jump into all of that in a little bit. So walk us through that. So you've got a good grade, you've got good grades, you're young, you're pumped up, you're ambitious, you're looking to get into the marketing agency. Potentially your parents weren't as connected as some of your peers. You're an immigrant. All of that's weighing on you. You ended up in recruitment. How did that happen?
Yeah, with the short stop in sales. So as I was not able to land the job in marketing and I was nearing graduation, my parents said they were helping me out a little bit through school, and they said, that is all going to be finished the day that you graduate, so you better get a job. And I've been working throughout university, of course, as every good immigrant, a couple of jobs at the same time, but all part-time student jobs. So not having been able to find a job in marketing, I ended up working in sales, the most amazing school of learning, but the most brutal thing you can do, call center style, B2B, but telemarketing, 150 calls a day, people hanging up on you, which I did for about a year.
Did you have to dial the numbers, or was it just one call after the other that was automatically coming in? Because that's what I
had to dial the numbers. I don't know which one's worse or better because I had to do my own research.
Not having control is the worst.
But I had to do my own lead research, and I had to do it on my own time. So because you can't make 150 calls a day if you're also researching your leads during office hours. So I had to prepare it all in advance and then just sit there and knock out the calls. As I said, amazing school. I actually recommend it. It was so brutal. I cried every single day before going to work, but it was the most amazing thing that I could have learned to do. And then I fell into recruitment by complete pure luck. I mean, I knew nothing about recruitment. I didn't know recruitment existed. Certainly, we didn't have any recruitment firms or anything of the sorts when I was growing up.
What year is this, Marina?
This was in 2005.
Okay, all right, good times.
Yeah, I had just a few years before recession hit. And so I went just on a random interview. It ended up being with one of the biggest national recruitment firms here in Canada. I landed the job. As I said, I had no idea what was in store for me, but I knew I wouldn't be making 150 calls a day, so it was good enough.
Yeah, who was that firm?
Quantum.
Okay, and they're a national one. All right, no problem. And what were you recruiting for?
A bit of everything. So I started off working just in permanent recruitment, permanent staffing, across the board, just nothing, no executive search. They do a lot of administrative assistance, a lot of, basic entry-level accounting, no tech. There was a different department for that. Customer service, just very high volume, junior and maybe mid-level roles. And then a couple of years later, they added on temporary staffing to my plate as well, something I never want to do again. And so it was a mix of both.
Wow. So you were flat out busy, and you did that for quite a bit of time, right?
I was there for 5 years.
Okay. That's a good apprenticeship.
Yes.
So you got to a stage, right? What was the straw that broke the camel's back and made you move on and do the next thing?
I got pregnant. It's really strange, but so many women that I speak with that are entrepreneurs either started a business when they were pregnant or on maternity leave, or that's when the whole idea started at the very least, which is really, really interesting.
So I'm in the throes of the baby stuff, or my wife is very much in it. I help out as much as possible. I'm not sure she would have the headspace to set up a business and to do that. Like How did that seem like a good idea? Like, were you not sleep deprived? What was that like?
Well, exactly. You're sleep deprived. You're delirious. You were just making all sorts of irrational decisions. No, but if I'm being serious, I had worked at that firm for 5 years, and I realized that I absolutely loved recruitment. And I know to this day that I'm one of very few people that actually say I love recruitment. I love everything about it. But I realized that what I didn't love was the culture of the firm that I was working at. It didn't sit well with me. I remember somebody asking me a question about a candidate, and I could not even remember hearing that candidate's name. So when somebody was asking me a question, what was she like? And I said, is it somebody I met? I was so confused. And then I looked in the database and I saw that it was somebody I'd met 2 days prior. And because it was such a high volume and zero focus on candidates and candidate experience, I couldn't even remember the person. And then I'm reading my notes, and she was amazing. And I couldn't even remember. And that really stuck with me. And I realized that as much as I loved the job, I did not love myself in the job and what I was bringing as value to job seekers, not only to clients. And so when I went on maternity leave, it was a good time to kind of reconnect with my values and reflect and look at things that were important to me. And my former colleague was in touch with me quite actively at that time. And she was the one that sparked the idea of taking, the biggest risk of my life so far and starting our own firm.
Wow. Okay. What are those early days like? What type of, what describe day one for me? What was it?
Day one was so awesome. So my little one was 9 months old. I left her at home with my mom, and my business partner and I had rented out a basement space in an office building. That's all we could afford. And so I showed up in the most obnoxious outfit you could imagine, because I could. Because, back at the firm where I worked, it was very strict and there were so many rules. And so I just wore the most obnoxiously, just strange
dress
outfit.
Shoes and tracksuit bottoms, was it?
It was just, there was zebra print. And that's all I'm going to say.
All right.
And
okay.
I showed up with a bottle of champagne in my crazy outfit. And I walked in and I thought, we would just settle in our first day and we would start slowly. As I walk in, I hear my business partner on the phone, and she's pointing to me, just sit down, come here. And she's speaking with a client who's giving her a mandate. This was day one.
Wow.
And the mandate was for a PHP developer. And we had never heard of, much of developers in general, certainly not.
Yeah, they're hard to find in general.
So she's pointing at me and she goes, PHP. And I just open my laptop and I'm Googling PHP and trying to figure out what she's talking about to give her, some talking points. Incidentally, now we work on so many roles in development, PHP included. And so that was day one.
Wow. Okay. So you got a requisition on day one.
Yes.
How did she manage to do that?
Cold calling. So she started with her, she was on 2 maternity leaves before I joined. So she had been a bit disconnected from the job market, but she started with her network of friends, acquaintances, just spreading the word before we started, a few weeks before. And then on day one, she just started the moment she walked into the office. We were both mothers of very young kids, so we had to optimize our time. So when we had that time to sit in the office between, having to rush home and breastfeed or pick up or drop off, we would just really have to maximize the time, just bang out all the calls. So that's what she was doing when I came in.
And so I probably should take this a step back. You're in Montreal. So what's the business, what's the main industries in Montreal? Is it a tech hub? Is it quite independent? It's quite independent to the other cities, isn't it, in Canada?
No, not so much. I mean, we do have, the French flavor here, the European flavor, but it's not so disconnected from the other cities. It's definitely a strong startup hub. There's a lot of investment that the government makes into startups, specifically tech, of course, and a lot of investment venture capital firms here as well. A lot of businesses have opened offices here, Google, Facebook.
Fantastic.
Office, you name it, we have. Is not in Montreal, but they have an office in Montreal as well. So very strong in tech, very strong in the service industry and manufacturing as well.
Okay, excellent. And so that was the start. Did you place that role, by the way?
I don't think we did.
Wow.
But at least we'll
yeah,
learn
at least it
about
got
PHP.
at least it got it going. So walk us just through quickly, like how did you get profitable, and what did that look like from that moment where you're up and running, and what values did you instill in this business that you felt weren't in the last business?
I love those questions that you're asking. So a couple of things. First of all, when we started the recruitment firm, when we started Pronexia, we were smack in the middle of recession, right? This was 2010. So we were coming out of the recession. So we really needed to hustle. That was number one. So it really was just a lot of volume of work and reaching out to people. You had to work really hard, not only to get mandates, but also to, convince candidates who were working to make a shift. Everybody was very hesitant. I'm sure you remember those days as well. One of the things that I know helped us scale and helped us grow, because we grew by bootstrapping. We never looked for any loans or investments. We also had to make money because we both had babies and we had to, we had families to feed. So it had to work. There was no other option. We started the business in September, October, and I gave myself until May. And if we weren't profitable up until then, we would have to, get jobs.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we became profitable essentially instantaneously by keeping our costs very low and just hustling and getting mandates. What contributed to that were a couple of things. So from day one, I told my business partner that the number one most important company value that I wanted to have, even when it was just the two of us in the basement we were renting, was candidate experience. Wow, candidate experience. And this was, 7 years ago, when candidate experience was not talked about that much. And also in recession, everybody was focused more on companies that were, adventurous enough to hire. And so candidate experience, and we grew over the years by elimination. We would only take on clients that aligned with the value of wow candidate experience. We would fire clients if we found out that they mistreated candidates, even during the hiring process or afterwards. We would go on client pitches, and if we saw that the environment, the conditions were not optimal, not a place where one of us would work, if we were looking for a job, we would walk away.
Okay.
Very, very selective.
Okay, that makes sense. But candidate experience is a very broad term. And what's your checks and balances to make sure, firstly, that you're doing the right thing from a candidate experience perspective? And then what are the checks and balances that you then put on to your client?
Yeah. So first of all, we visit every single company before we take them on as a client. If we have a company call in and say, we can't meet with you guys right now, we're really busy, but we are giving you the mandate and the details, we say no. We do not take on a mandate until we have visited and made sure that this was the place where, as I said, that's always our benchmark. If I were looking for a job, would I want to work there? If the answer is no, then it's no for my candidates too. So that's number one. Number two, all of the small things. We try to make candidates feel very welcome. There's zero wait time when they come in. If somebody is on the phone or a candidate has to wait as an exception, we come, we apologize, we offer them, fresh orange juice, coffee, etc. We don't treat them from the position of, I have the power and you just sit there and wait until I bestow the pleasure of meeting with me upon you. We follow up. We always give feedback. We try to over communicate instead of under communicating. So all those small things. But I think most importantly, again, our candidates have the faith in us that where we're sending them is a great place to work. So we also started conducting culture audits. When we go to meet a prospective new client, we sit down with them instead of, for a regular 20-30 minute meeting, a good hour and a half, 2 hours, and we go through every single pillar of their company culture, so that then we see where there are gaps, if there are any, what are they doing to ensure that it is an optimal place for a job seeker. And then also we have that wealth of information to then communicate to our candidates, which is quite priceless.
Okay. Wow. Well, that is a succinct answer if I've ever heard one. What did this lead to?
What do you mean?
Well, you mentioned there when we spoke before that there's another element to your business.
Yes. So we are starting to, because we've been looking for a point of differentiation, which goes beyond only just candidate experience, and we've proven ourselves in the local market that we have that and we have that edge. But we've developed this profound interest, as I told you, in company culture and also employer branding and the intersection of the two. So essentially, how can a company optimize its culture, work on everything behind closed scenes, but then communicate it externally through the power of marketing, as you were mentioning before, and through what's called the employer branding strategy.
And there you go. You're getting the boot into those marketing people that wouldn't hire you all those years ago, and you're revolutionizing it within your own sector.
I'm doing it. I'm telling you, the chip on my shoulder is growing smaller.
Good on you. Right. Sorry for interrupting. Go on, crack on.
Of course. And so that's a new service that we offer. It stems from a lot of work that we had been doing almost from inception. So a couple of years into launching Pronexia, we also launched Montreal's first conference series on the topic of company culture and employer branding.
Wow.
And so it's an annual event. What we do is we bring together speakers from some of our top clients, Shopify, Uber, Sidley, Cassette, just Facebook, just to name it, we've had them. We bring speakers, we bring executives from those companies, and then the audience is by invitation only. We do not offer open admission. So we invite our clients, we invite our prospects, we invite good contacts that we have to attend the conference. And through it, we realized a couple of things. We realized that, of course, it's a great way to bring value to the market and also, brand our company. It's great for our own marketing, but also B, we realized how much talk there is around company culture and employer branding. How many people mention it and talk about it, but nobody can really define it. We've asked during our conferences, what is company culture? And we hear so many different answers. A lot of them sound very poetic and metaphorical and, very fluffy. Nobody could define it. So we started working on really looking at the pillars that together as a sum of all parts define company culture, and then looking at pillars of an employer branding strategy, how you can then communicate it externally to the market. And we started offering that as a service to companies locally.
Could you quickly outline what they are?
Absolutely. So there's quite a few of them. Essentially, if you look at company culture as your employee experience, everything that touches on your employee experience. So everything from physical space to, of course, your pay benefits, etc. We're quite a lot of detail into leadership training and internal leadership progression, because we know that 80% of people quit their bosses, not their companies. So we'll do a bit program. So internally, candidate experience with different ways, pillars, depending, on what they are. And then for employer branding, it's Glassdoor to social media output, to also the presence, the personal professional brand that have in the local market, because that obviously adds to the reputation of the company as well, to that the company partakes in, again, externally, not from the social perspective internally, but externally. So all of those different components too.
Well, and then documenting all.
Absolutely. So we
on the right.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent. Wow. Okay, so you sound extremely busy. Are you still running a desk?
Yes, because I love it too much. You know what I realized? It's really funny. Entrepreneurs Organization, which is this international net entrepreneurs and fairly mature, successful businesses. One of the things that was repeated over and over again is that if you're a real entrepreneur, working on your business and not in your business. So you have to work on strategy and vision and mission and your why, etc., and not be, as you said, in my case, working the desk. So I removed myself from recruitment for a good, maybe even a year. And I realized I missed it so much. And I was thinking, why am I forcing some, theoretical concepts upon myself and removing myself from something that I enjoy so much? And I got back into it. So I headhunt, I reach out to people, I connect with people. I do a lot more sort of sourcing and networking of candidates than I do, the more tactical. I don't post job ads, for example. I don't do interviews anymore.
Sure.
But I love it too much, I realized, to fully step away.
Yeah, it's always better to see somebody leading from the front as well.
I think so.
Yeah, I do as well. And so tell us, how does the business look today? How large is it? What type of stuff are you doing in terms of desks? And give us an overview on that side.
Cool. So we are 10 people right now. We have an office in Montreal and one in Vancouver, so the opposite side of Canada. We have one person in Vancouver and the rest in Montreal. We split the team into, we don't run 360-degree desks, so it's account managers and recruiters separately. And then my business partner and myself running the business. We have an office. We do work from an office. We're strong believers in not only visiting every single company that we take on as a client, but also interviewing every single candidate in person, with exception for Skype if they're remote, of course. But we're, we always say that we're old school meets new school. We believe in that, physical connection and meeting and, all those old school things.
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask that question. It does sound like you're old school versus new school. So that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. And the sectors that you're after, you're not specific to any one area, are you?
We go more by elimination. So we don't take on any temporary mandates, so no temp staffing. We don't do any mass recruitment, mass hiring, entry-level roles. And predominantly, we work with small and medium-sized founder-run businesses. We really enjoy working with entrepreneurs because we understand the mindset, but across all verticals.
Okay, you're not a massive business and you're not doing temp. So the 180 split really interests me on how you operate that. Mm-hmm. It's different depending on the size of the recruitment business, in my experience, and the verticals that they operate in. At what point? So obviously the 180 on the front, the account manager wins business. At what point do they hand over? Or who delivers resumes, or how, what's the division of labor there?
So the account manager does all of the communication with the client, and does all of the communication with candidates after they've come in for an interview with us. So all of that communication.
Okay, so essentially the sourcing person is a bit more junior.
Not necessarily, because we work on a lot of executive search. So our recruiters are very much headhunters. So they're sourcing, they're also then interviewing the candidates. But because predominantly we work with mid-level and senior roles, they're certainly more on the experienced end.
Okay, great. So they kind of know, okay, their deals to find, to qualify, and then to move on. Is the key piece getting that communication right between both of them in terms of the job brief?
It's crucial. And so our recruiters, first of all, are involved in all of the initial discussions with the client. So if it is a new client that we're signing on, when our account manager goes to meet with the client, so does the recruiter. If it is an existing client, but a new call, then the recruiter that will be working on the mandate is always on the call with the account manager. So we make sure that there's nothing sort of lost in translation or communication. And then we also try, when the candidate comes in for an interview with the recruiter, to introduce him or her to the account manager for the the particular role as well. So we try to keep that communication constant and not, as I said, play broken telephone.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, that's all my questions, Marina. Really interesting business. Thank you so much for coming on and having a chat. One last thing, I suppose, would be, if you want to give a shout out to anything that you're trying to build in your own team right now, or where can people find you?
I would love for people to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm exceptionally active on LinkedIn. My business partner and I started a video series called Recruitment Drive, where we're driving in the car and talking about all things recruitment. So that would be the best place to connect with me. And our website is www.pronexia.com.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. We've all learned a lot
Thank you
today.
so much for having me, and I hope you get more sleep this week.
Take care.
All right, thank you.
Well, there you go. Big thank you to Marina for coming on and sharing her story. I'd not set up a business like hers if I had a blank slate, but it works for her. And, she has a old school, new school mentality is how she describes it. So new school in the way that they use employer branding and teach people about marketing and, run events. The event business is so clever. And then old school in terms that they meet all their candidates, they meet all their clients. So that means that it's very hard to grow a business outside of your own geographical area if you're doing that. So it probably wouldn't interest me, but it's a great business and it really works for her. And yeah, more power to her. And I like the way that she's really just trying to do it like her own way. And it's really worked out. So great guest. And let me know what you think of it. And let me know if you enjoyed the episode. And if you've any questions on it, on how she set up her business, hit me up. And if you want to come on the show and talk about your company and your experiences, then, you know, we're really excited to have you. We're going to have some amazing guests from China, from Dubai, on in the next few weeks. And yeah, I'm really enjoying getting to speak to all these amazing people in our industry. And if you get a chance, leave us a little recommendation on iTunes. It makes all the difference. And subscribe to the podcast. All right. Take care. God bless. Go get some.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.